Mahesh,
Yes, Ajay.
yeah. So till what time do we wait?
We we will start at 4:05.
4, 5. Okay, cool. Hello, Garvita.
Yes. Good
Okay,
evening.
you are there.
Yes.
So we'll start in about a minute or so.
Yeah. We'll wait for 2 more minutes or we'll start. People are still coming in.
Are still joining, yes.
We'll start. Good evening, everyone. As your Master of Ceremonies, I would first like to introduce myself. I'm Garvita Srivastav, Executive Committee Member of BCICI. On behalf of BCICI, I welcome you all to this special webinar session on BCICI Commerce Students Conquering New Frontiers Awards, an interesting topic of investing during global pandemic. I'm sure many of you must be having a lot of queries about how this coronavirus is going to impact the market. I would like to inform you all that all the participants have been muted. For any queries or comments, you can leave your message on the chat box, which will be answered at the end of the session by a speaker. I would now request Chairperson CA Mahesh Kumar Narayan to give his opening remarks. Over to you, CA Mahesh.
Thank you, CA Garvita, for the crisp and brief introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Just for the information of all of you, this session is being live streamed on YouTube, and people from not only from Bahrain, but most of the Gulf countries and maybe in India are watching this event, more so because we have got some champions today among us who have made a name for themselves in the academic history of Bahrain. Before I get into the session, I want to just welcome everyone, the parents, the students, the school authorities, and of course our own members for today's technical session. The last time we met together was on 1st of July 2020 for celebrating the Chartered Accountants Day. That means it's been effectively 16 days since we had an event. In fact, I got a call last weekend from a member saying, Mahesh, I didn't receive any notification about today's event. I said, which event you're talking about? I said, that event that usually happens every weekend. I said, boss, there was no event that weekend, and there is no event for the next weekend as well. So it has been the case that we have been regularly hosting these events since last many weeks. In fact, our joint secretary and me were having a discussion that since we went on to this virtual mode sometimes in March, he mentioned that we have done phenomenally well by having about 11 virtual events. And today will be the 12th one. I casually asked him between March 21 till July 18th, how many weekends were there? And he roughly counted and said about 30. I said, what did we do for the remaining 18? So, that was my conversation with him. Of course, we are trying our best to make the most of this lockdown period. And it's an endeavor to ensure that members emerge more knowledgeable and more informative as we all start coming out of the pandemic in the near future. The trigger for today's technical event was again something that I came across in the recent news when I saw today's speaker, write about this subject. And I felt that this subject will resonate with all our members. And it would be appropriate to have a full-fledged discussion with the knowledgeable speaker in today's event. Of course, the first part of our event is going to be the BCICI Commerce Student Conquering New Frontiers Award. I will let our MC for today, Garvita, to navigate us through the rest of the session. All of you enjoy the session, and we look forward for all your questions for the session through the chat box. Back to you, Garvita.
Thank you, CA Mahesh. BCICI Commerce Student Conquering New Frontiers Award are for the meritorious student who secured first, second, and third place respectively from the commerce stream of CBSE curriculum across all the schools in Bahrain for the year 2019-20. We acknowledge the presence of students, parents, and school officials like principal, vice principal, teachers, and staff. Moving on to the awards, a third prize winner is Ms. Shireen Sushan Santosh from Indian School Bahrain, who has secured 96.6%. Request our chairperson CA Mahesh Kumar Narayan to present a virtual certificate to Ms. Shireen.
Thank you, Garvita, again. I'm going to share the screen because we are not able to hand over a physical certificate as of today, but I'm sure I will be coordinating with the students and the schools to hand over the certificate in the coming days to all the winners. So as of now, Ms. Shireen Suzanne Santosh, I would request you to unmute yourself and just confirm that this is you on the certificate and your details are correct. Shireen Santosh?
Yes, yes.
Right. So hearty congratulations on your phenomenal achievement. You have made yourselves proud, your school proud, your teachers and your parents proud, and we would like to hear from you, on your journey and thus far, and what's the future plans,
Yeah,
Ms.
sure.
Shireen.
Yeah. Good evening to all. It's a great pleasure to be selected for this Excellence Award for my achievement in the 12th boards. I thank God for blessing me to achieve 96.6% and making me this third island topper in the commerce stream. I'm grateful to my parents, teachers, relatives, friends, and my near and dear ones for all their prayers and blessings. I love accounts and I got an exposure to finance management when I was selected as the head of finance in the 2019 Model United Nations conducted by Indian School Bahrain. As I could do it successfully, my confidence was boosted to think about my future studies in accounts and finance. I've taken admission to do BCom with International Finance in Christ University, Bangalore. And I aspire to do CFA or CPA as I need more clarity about the subjects. I hope I will get it when I do the degree. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and the award, which is really a motivation to take up challenges and do hard work to achieve it. I would like to conclude by telling, don't limit your challenges, challenge your limits. Thank you.
Thank you, Shireen. Good to know about your future plans. We would have been more happier if you had mentioned that you're also planning to do a CA, instead of the alternatives of CFA or CPA. But I'm sure you would have given a detailed thought before, choosing either of these two options.
Yes, sure, yes.
I wish you all the best with your academic journey in Christ College, Bangalore. It is one of the very well-known, universities, and even I have friends of mine who have their awards studying in that college, and I'm sure you're going to do well in the future. Along with this virtual certificate, of course, we will make the physical certificate available to you. There's also going to be a token cash award. Garvita, you just want to mention about that, please?
Thank you.
Sorry, Mahesh, I'm not too sure about the cash award.
Right. Sure, no problem. So as I said, the token cash award of $200, which we will be presenting to you along with the certificate of merit.
Sure, thank you so much.
And happy to see your parents on the background, and congratulations to your parents as well.
Thank you.
And we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
so much.
Over to you, Garvita.
Thank you, Shireen, and congratulations. Wish you luck for a bright future.
Thank you.
Moving on to second prize winners, which is jointly won by Ms. Nandini Rajesh Nair from Indian School of Bahrain and Ms. Ananya Upadhyayalu from NMS DPS. They both secured 97.2%. Request the chairperson, CA Mahesh Kumar Narayan, to present a virtual certificate to Ms. Nandini.
Ms. Nandini, if you can unmute yourself, let me hear your voice and acknowledge that you are seeing the certificate on the screen.
Good afternoon, this is me, Nandini. And yes, I can see the certificate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nandini. Good to see you, and welcome to this BCICI Commerce Student Conquering New Frontiers Awards. And just like we did with Shireen, we would like to hear a few words from you about your journey so far and your plans ahead. Over to you, Nandini.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for giving this opportunity. I thank ICAI for this. And it feels surreal to be the commerce topper of my school because this has not been easy. It's been work, hard work and sincerity and all of that. But most of all, it feels great that I feel the doors for my dream college, which is Delhi University, has been opened. I plan to do economics for further studies. I want to be an economist. I would love to say I like accounts, but it is not my forte. So I know I want to say marks don't matter and all of that, but it is not true. In our country, it is not true. And for my dream college and for the access to it, I need these marks. And it feels surreal, to be here with those marks, waiting for the applications to start from Delhi University. Yeah. They say if you work really hard, the universe conspires for you to achieve it. Paulo Coelho. I used to feel it is very overrated, but trust me, it is not. Things work when you work for your dreams. The universe conspires in ways you do not understand. But yes, it is a true thing, and he knew what he was saying. That's all that I want to say. Thank you so much. And congratulations to other friends of mine who have done really well in CBSE board examinations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nandini, for being very open about your liking for economics. And we wish you all the very best in your pursuit of your favorite topic or subject in the Delhi University. And I hope to see you very soon as one of the bright economists of India and doing good for the nation. We all understand the value of hard work. As a chartered accountant, we ourselves have gone through the grind. I can't say that I had a clear vision like you when I was your age, but I know that I wanted to do a course which is respectable and noble, and that's what chartered accountancy is all about. So I'm sure if you have any siblings, maybe you can perhaps ask them to consider this as an option. And let the fraternity of chartered accountants keep growing. Along with the certificate of merit, we also have a cash award of $300, which will, of course, we will coordinate and manage to hand it over to you in the coming days. Thanks for accepting our invitation to be here. We thank your parents and your school for also being part of this journey, and wish you all the very best, Nandini.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you, Garvita.
Thank you, CA Mahesh, and very well said, Nandini, and all the best for your future endeavors. Now I request Chairperson CA Mahesh to present a virtual certificate to Ms. Ananya, who is also a joint winner for second prize, and she has also secured 97.2%. Ananya, I hope you're there.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much.
I would request you to say a few words.
Firstly, good evening, everyone. Before proceeding, I just want to thank Bahrain ICAI for this felicitation and recognition. Sharing this with these exceptional students truly feels unreal to me. About future plans, I plan to pursue BBA Branding and Advertising with the Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies in Mumbai. From the very beginning, my parents have supported me, and they have pushed me to achieve things that make me happy. And I can say the same for all the teachers at my school, New Millennium School. I wouldn't be here without the support of some very special people, and I would like to take this moment to thank them. I would like to thank Reema ma'am, my homeroom teacher, for just supporting me always with positivity and inspiration. I would like to thank my subject teachers, Kumkum ma'am, Vijaya ma'am, and Komal ma'am, for making these sessions so interactive and supporting us and helping us with the concepts till the very end. I would like to thank our principal, sir, Mr. Arun Kumar Sharma, for his words of wisdom in every assembly. Thank you so much, sir, and I promise to be a responsible global citizen. I would also like to thank my parents who always let me study independently at my own pace and never let me compromise on my social life or other extracurricular activities. And last but not the least, I would like to thank all the students at New Millennium School. NMS provided me with such a friendly environment to learn, to grow, and to have fun, and I will forever be grateful for that. So thank you so much once again, and all the best to all the other students for their future opportunities and plans. Yeah.
Thank you, Ananya. I don't know whether you recollect, the Chartered Accountants chapter of Bahrain made a visit to NMS sometimes in October last year.
Yes, I remember.
To talk about the career counseling and how chartered accountancy can be one of the best choices available for students, looking for somewhere I feel that I haven't done enough justice, perhaps, to convince you to look at this. But I'm going to tell my successor, CA Ajay, that perhaps when he is going again to the NMS in the coming months, he perhaps gets an undertaking from at least 10 of you that they are going to pursue chartered accountancy.
No, I definitely gave it a thought, but I'm more inclined towards marketing.
Sure. Good to know that you're going back to Mumbai. Mumbai is a place where I grew up. I did my schooling and my CA days. Nursi Monji is, of course, one of the best institutions in Mumbai, and I'm sure you're going to have a good, academic career with them. And we hope to, see you achieve more accolades in your future. And
thank you so much.
Just like I mentioned, you are being given a certificate of award as well as a cash prize of your school principal. Arun sir is with us today in this event. Arun sir, if you're there, if you can unmute yourself and maybe share a few thoughts. Mr. Arun Kumar.
Yes, Mr. Mahesh, thank you so much. And let me first thank the entire fraternity of the Chartered Accountants for this good initiative you have been taking. And almost every year I have been the part of the award ceremony when it was physically there. And this time, of course, I wanted to be the part of it. I'm so happy for the success of my students, and not only the students of my school and all the students. And of course, your support in encouraging the students and giving them direction to become chartered accountant is really praiseworthy. And definitely, I would love to see your team once again in the New Millennium School. We are always open. We love our children, and we love them to be the part of the fraternity in the global, as a global citizen. As my Ananya was telling you, this is the vision of the school, and we vouch for it. We love all our students. We love our people who are working with us. Thank you so very much. God bless each one of you, and all the very best for this particular endeavor. Keep it up.
Thank you, Arun sir, for your kind words and for expressing your support to
Ananya, Ananya, can I speak to Ananya also? Just to tell her, beta, you have passed the school. You will be always the part of the NMS family. We love you, and wherever you are, we will miss you, and we will always be there with you. God bless you always, beta.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Back to you, Garvita.
Thank you, Mahesh. And thank you, Arun sir. Thank you, Ananya. And Ananya, once again, congratulations and wish you achieve great success in all your assignments. Now it's time. Okay. Now it's time for the highest scorer. First prize goes to Ms. Fatima Zafar from Ibn al-Hitham Islamic School. She has bagged meritorious 98%. Request our chairperson, CA Mahesh Kumar Narayan, to present a virtual certificate to Ms. Fatima.
Ms. Fatima?
Yes, sir.
Are you there?
Yes.
Right. Ms. Fatima, exams are over, results are out. I still see that you're very scared.
Not really.
So please don't be scared. And
I'm not.
we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you about your whole journey. And of course, just like your other friends mentioned about the way forward. Over to you, Fatima.
Yeah. Firstly, I would like to express my gratitude to ICAI for organizing something like this because it's a big relief in times of this pandemic. No one can meet each other. This is like a really great initiative. So, firstly, thanks a lot. And then, congrats to everybody else here, really, because achieving something like this isn't easy. It requires constant hard work and consistency. So, definitely, congratulations to everyone. So when I was in 10th grade, I had a clear vision of what I wanted to do. I was someone interested in BA literature and I wanted to go for IAS coaching. But then I was so curious about commerce that I thought I'll choose it and I'll go with my own dreams. So, but what happened unplanned was the fact that I was in total fascination for accountancy and economics once I chose commerce. And some days I would end up doing questions after questions like till 1 to 2 at night. So I'd be so obsessed with it. So now I have this newfound fascination for accountancy, and I'm planning to do something like that in the future. Perhaps BCom, maybe in one of the universities in Delhi, TU or JMU, something like that, somewhere. I'm hoping. I've applied. I'm waiting for their reply. And also to do something like a professional course, maybe CMA or CA, something like that. I hope you're happy to hear that. And yes, but most importantly, my biggest inspiration is the fact that I want to do something to, there's so many problems happening across the world, so many evils out there, so many injustice and discrimination across the world. So I wish I could be a part to help fix those. And I consider this as a tiny step towards achieving my goals. Yes. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatima. If I'm correct, this is the first time that your school has got someone who has taught the country.
Yes, it's the first time.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
So of course that your name will be of course written in golden words in the school's academic history. And
Yes.
very, very happy to know your thoughts about the work that you want to do in the near future. Having a professional qualification is, of course, something that you should aspire for, because that's going to serve you for a very long time. And
Yes,
I mean, in case you're not aware, chartered accountancy is the only academic qualification where there are no reservations of any kind. The only criteria for getting into chartered accountancy
to
is
work.
commitment to hard work and commitment to do good. So
Yes,
having
absolutely.
done the kind of work that you have done for achieving this laurels, I'm sure chartered accountancy would be something which you should consider pursuing. And we as a chartered accountant fraternity would be really benefited by having you as a member in the coming few years. So wish you all the very best. We can see your parents in the background. We also
Yes.
thank them for their support, and
Yes.
I'm sure they're also feeling very proud about today's day.
Yes, again, and I forgot to mention my teachers, everyone. They've worked really hard. They've been with me when I wanted them, most importantly. So yes, my Akila teacher, Sunija teacher, Anwar sir, and Raj Lakshmi teacher, a big thanks to all of them.
Sure, thank you. So Fatima, congratulations again. On behalf of BCICI, we would be presenting to you
so
a
much.
certificate of an award and a cash prize of $500. And we hope to see you in person if the situation permits, and convey our gratitude in person. With this, I hand over charge back to Garvita for the session ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahesh, and congratulations, Fatima. Wish you achieve great success.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Once again, congratulations to all the winners and wish you all good luck for your bright future ahead. We hope this recognition will inspire and encourage tomorrow's stars, and it will provide them more impetus to work even harder for the bright future ahead. Moving on to our technical session for today. The world has never before seen a pandemic like the one we are experiencing right now. It has not only affected our health and way of life, but there is extreme uncertainty around about both the future of the economy as a whole and personal financial situations. Even financial markets have been reacting to this health crisis. The market is cyclical, riding ups and downs, and hence the risk-averse sentiment is building up. If you are unsure what to make of the ups and downs of the stock market, and you are even more unsure of where the economy is headed, we have Mr. Nishit Lakhotia, who is Head of Research at SECO BSC, among us today. SECO is one of the leading investment bank in Bahrain and has recently bagged a lot of prestigious awards, one of which is Best Investment Bank in Bahrain from Euromoney. Mr. Nishit has more than 15 years of diversified investment experience in the fields of risk management, hedge funds, private equity, and sell-side research. He regularly shares his investment insights and strategies to the investment community and has also conducted valuation workshops in the CFA Society on multiple occasions. He is a chartered financial analyst, a chartered alternative investment analyst, and a financial risk manager from the Global Association of Risk Professionals. He also holds an MBA finance degree from the Narsi Monjee Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai. To discuss more about the investment strategies, I will hand over the control to Mr. Nishit Lakhotia.
Yes. Hi. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to present my ideas. And it's a pleasure to be a part of the CFA Society, CA Society, and to be able to share my thoughts on the current situation. So I can just, I'll just start with my presentation, and I would want it to be interactive. So I would hope that there are a lot of questions at the end of the presentation, and hopefully everyone watching will have some questions. And it will be a good time spent here. So I need to start sharing my screen. Somehow I'm not able to do that. If I have that privilege from the host. Hello.
Yeah, done.
I can do that? Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. So yeah, I hope everyone can see the screen. Yeah. So in a nutshell, what we'll be discussing, and there are certain questions that I would try to answer. And obviously, when you look at the current situation in the markets, it's a situation that everyone is going through, perhaps for the first time in their life. This is a crisis that has impacted economically, socially, and obviously financially. And the markets currently are reflecting the volatility is reflecting the uncertainty that's there in the global world. And it's very volatility is a double-edged sword, in my opinion. If you get it wrong, you can actually lose a lot of money if you're investing as an investor. And if you get it right, you can make a good amount of money. And perhaps it's an opportunity that one can exploit very well. And while I just need to make a caveat that though I will be talking about certain I will be talking about certain financial metrics and the valuation techniques that one can apply, but then the conventional approach still holds. But there are certain things that become more important in this situation, in this market, and this is where one can perhaps focus more on to avoid making mistakes given this market situation. So the question that I'll be addressing is which valuation multiple can become meaningless or perhaps even misleading during this current time. How is the discount rate, which is the discount that you use to value, to figure out what's the value of your investments, and how will that move during this current times? How has that changed? Which financial statements are more critical? And then what are the government doing, the central banks are doing, how you should understand that and analyze and use that in your decision making. And of course, there are certain investment tips that I would be giving towards the end that one should follow, even if there's no pandemic, but it's more important when there is a volatile market such as this. And I will end the presentation with certain charts that would be like a food for thought, and perhaps we can discuss a bit more during the Q&A on those charts as well. So, well, I'm focusing more on the equities. That's where my expertise is, and equities as an asset class is becoming more attractive given the current situation. If one looks at US 10-year Treasury, it's at a historical low of just about 0.6%. In fact, more than 85% of the developed market 10-year government bonds are yielding less than 1%, and perhaps it might just go a bit lower. That means another alternative to liquid investment is fixed income. But fixed income is hardly yielding anything. So you would look at equities become much more attractive. And what makes equities attractive is also your discount rate. The weighted average cost of capital that you use to discount the cash flows of a company, that is also falling. That's falling because the risk-free rate has fallen. And if you look at the CAPM model, which is basically rests on the risk-free rate and the equity risk premium, it's a blend of both, or your cost of debt, both are falling. So when your discount rate falls, one is willing to accept a lower return from equity as well to invest in equities, because you're hardly getting anything from the fixed income. So you get 7 to 8% more in equities, you're willing to take that risk. So this is where equities as an asset class is looking attractive. Obviously, there's some caveats. I'm in GCC for that matter. The CDS spreads in GCC did expand because there is a double hit in the region with oil prices being lower as well as the economic impact. So it doesn't mean that everywhere equities has become less riskier. You have to be careful and you have to analyze each country's dynamics and understand how you want to factor in your cost of equity and your cost of debt. So moving to the next slide, this talks about some of the valuation multiples that one generally use. And it's very easy to use these multiples because it's very intuitive, looking at price to earnings ratio, enterprise value by EBITDA, return on equity. But the problem is this pandemic has become such a huge crisis that has led to business closures, temporary shutdowns, lockdowns. So there is no real visibility of the earnings. And also, frankly, we don't even know when this pandemic would end, whether there'll be second wave, third wave, how each country would evolve, and how the companies and sectors would evolve in the coming quarters or perhaps even next year. So looking at maybe only the earnings, when earnings become meaningless, your 2019 multiples is meaningless. So if a company has made $100 million last year, doesn't mean that that can be used as a benchmark as to where the company would move in the next 1 year or 2 years. So perhaps looking at the price to earning ratio of 2019 is meaningless. Plus, you cannot even forecast to a large extent for some of these, many of these companies rather, what will happen in 2020 or even 2021. And so there is certain other ratios or even statements that one should look at. And I'll be discussing a bit more in the next slide as to what to focus if one has to analyze which companies are fundamentally stronger. So the first point I want to make is balance sheet strength now in the near term becomes a bit much more important than earnings. The reason it is that this crisis is going to test your cash flows of the business, whether the business can survive the lockdown, how long can the business have ammunition, which is a cash, to survive, how is the debt ratio, how is the leverage, do the companies which are there have access to easy credit, working capital gets stretched of companies. So this is where the cash flows and balance sheet becomes much more important than the immediate earnings. And we'll take Air Arabia as one example to understand whether Air Arabia, how it fares if one has to look at this as a stock. So continuing with the same point on the balance sheet, everyone knows that the airlines came to a standstill for last few months. The operations, there were a few repatriation flights, but the business has far from being normal. Now there are a few flights which are starting, but we don't know whether how long they will take to return to normal. There's no real visibility. So in terms of projecting the earnings for companies such as Air Arabia, in terms of earnings are meaningless. But should we be really afraid of investing in a company like Air Arabia? First, we need to start with the balance sheet analysis. So one can see the balance sheet on the right side of the screen, bottom half. The cash and bank balance of Air Arabia is close to 3 billion as of first quarter, which is the latest financials. And if you look at their borrowings, it's hardly anything, 350 million in short-term borrowings, and which is important because we need to see whether they have any pending payments to be done to the bank. So it seems like they are in a very comfortable position in terms of the cash balance. But what is more important to see is how much is their cash burn. Cash burn would be when you analyze what are their fixed costs that they need to pay, and more importantly, what are the fixed cash costs. So you look at the staff costs, which assuming they are paying the salaries on time, the other operating costs, their lease costs, because they have this lease of planes. So when you look at that and you see that their cash cost per week for Air Arabia is roughly around 25 to 30 million dirham, and they have over 3 billion in cash balance. So accordingly, in terms of surviving this lockdown, they can actually ground their entire fleet. And even if the fleet is grounded for 1.5 months or even 2 months, they will have 200 million to 250 million that they will lose in cash. So it gives you some level of comfort that as long as Air Arabia's flights are grounded, and even then, even if their earnings are not really there, they have the cash balance and balance sheet strength to survive through this storm. But it's not just the balance sheet that one needs to focus on. The other equally important aspect comes the operating leverage of a company. Operating leverage, in simple terms, is the firm's cost structure. It is the mix of your fixed cost and variable costs. So you look at how much percentage of your cost is fixed and how much percentage is variable cost. And if a company has a high operating leverage, which means that the bulk of their costs are fixed costs and versus variable, and vice versa if it is low operating leverage. During such times, when we are looking at businesses where it is scaled down, the operations are much lower or hardly anything, we have to look at how quickly can the business control their costs, bring their cash outflows as low as possible. So the companies with low operating leverage will be easier for them to survive than the companies with high operating leverage. The low operating leverage companies are the companies which have high proportion of their cost structure as variable costs, and not only a low portion as fixed costs, which they may have to incur even if they are not operating or doing any business whatsoever. So again, why don't we just look at Air Arabia as an example to understand how do we deal with operating leverage? So if you break down the cost structure of Air Arabia, some of the variable costs are fuel. So if the flight is not flying, you don't pay for the fuel. So the fuel cost, passenger ground handling costs, landing, overflying costs, so the bulk of these costs, if you can look at from the breakdown, is variable. So Air Arabia, as long as the fleet is grounded, the only thing that they need to pay is staff costs. But here also you see most of the airlines are doing restructuring. They're either letting go of staff or they are cutting salaries until the airline operations are not normalizing. So you are seeing some level of cost management at staff cost level also. But let's assume that it is fixed and Air Arabia not laying off anybody and paying everyone their salaries as per the contract. Then you look at the depreciation. Now here the depreciation is not a cash cost, but in Air Arabia sense, this can be replicated with their lease payments, so that they pay for the airlines. So that's the next big cost that they will have when they have to pay the lease, and in any other airline, if they are owning the aircraft, they might have to pay interest payments. So this lease cost is something that would be a fixed cost. And then perhaps the maintenance cost is largely variable, but you will have to maintain the aircrafts on the ground and maybe some parking charges. So if you break down and you analyze this cost structure, you would see that this airline has low operating leverage. So as long as the airlines are not flying, it's not that they have a huge cash burn. So again, this makes the survival of the airlines good. And also this means that the earnings impact, despite the lockdown and the closure of business, would not be as severe. But is this enough for anybody to go ahead and buy Air Arabia stock? Maybe not. One has to really understand that we have to look at the broader sectoral dynamics. So there are, this crisis has had different degrees of impact on different sectors. So based on your risk appetite and your fundamental understanding of the sectoral dynamics, one has to take a call. Airlines is right up there in terms of the impact that they have seen. Horeca is your hospitality, restaurant, catering business, which again has seen a huge impact. Travel and tourism is linked to it. Gyms will see a huge impact. And then the event, entertainment, ride-hailing apps. So these are some sectors that are really seeing a huge impact on their business. While there are some businesses which are not seeing that huge impact, but they're still suffering currently and would see medium-term impact. So even banks come there, BFSI, real estate, retail, automotive, where the demand is going down, and banks will see some loans, NPLs rising. So that there again, you will see an impact on their businesses. While FMCG, healthcare, utilities, packaging industry, these are seeing low impact, or some of them are even benefiting. Now, so we need to understand which companies are, how they are placed within this crisis. And clearly the sectors that are benefiting are the likes of telecom, technology, media, the likes of like Zoom. So you are seeing that e-commerce, computers, hardware, even in Bahrain, if you look at it, you would not really find a lot of the basic computer hardware is going out of stock given the demand. And of course, grocery stores, with people not dining in restaurants, the sales from grocery stores and spending of everyone has gone up. So one has to carefully analyze how the sector is playing out and how the company within that sector is trying to survive and what strategy they are adopting. So coming back to the airline sector, because we take Air Arabia as an example, the fundamentals of this airline industry is going through a structural shift. We don't know when there will be this leisure travel coming back, when there will be business travel coming back to normal. And for companies like Air Arabia, we have to also understand how is the broader market dynamics. So in this competition in Air Arabia, if you look at it, you will see that Air Arabia is competing with state-owned airlines. So whether these state-owned airlines, how would they behave? They have huge planes. Will they take over the capacity? So this is an issue because there is when the demand contracts, industry should also contract. But industry is here in this region has not really contracted so much because of state-owned airline. There's no bankruptcies. And this is where we think there can be an issue with Air Arabia. So just giving an example that not just looking at the company specific balance sheet, operating level, but also understand whether at sectoral level, how the industry is placed will be equally important. But like one can see, the stock declined, but then it has rallied back. So it seems that the market is really confident on this stock. The stock is actually trading 9 to 10% higher on a year-on-year basis. So that shows the level of confidence that some of the investors are placing on Air Arabia. Another equally important factor is the government bailouts. We've seen that most of the governments across the region, not just this region, but also globally, have been proactive to deal with the crisis. The crisis magnitude has been so severe. So they've come up with policies to assist the different companies, sectors, and also in terms of what they can do to minimize their impact, economic impact on both the individuals as well as the companies. So you've seen loan waivers, loan deferrals, direct cash benefit, unemployment insurance, some level of relief from recurring expenses, municipal fees, utility cost waiver. So all these are equally important to analyze because this will make certain industries and companies survive this crisis, otherwise they wouldn't have. So one can understand that and also factor that into one's valuation to analyze both the government bank and also the central banks that have actually played a very important role to ensure that there's enough liquidity in the system. And they have also directed the banks to do a lot to support the economy. So this is, again, a very important factor to understand. And then moving to the next factor would be the communication of the company that one is looking at. So if you're investing in equities, you're investing in these listed companies that will have a management strategy. They will have some communication plan with the minority investors. So companies that will have a solid investor relations, who are proactively engaging the investment community, it's a tough time for them. But at the same time, if they're able to communicate what strategy they're following to survive the crisis, thrive within the crisis, or exploit certain opportunities, change their business model, as long as they are reachable, as long as they have certain plan that they want everyone to know, and one as a minority investor into a certain stock can actually understand and maybe communicate with the management through conference call, these companies will see that their stocks usually will trade at a premium to companies that are just shutting their communication with the outside world, or not really being proactive to talk about what their strategy is. So although this point is important generally across, but during crisis, communication becomes a much more important factor for an investor also to make an informed decision about the company during this time. And again, not just this, but there are certain investment tips which is very important during such crisis. You will see a lot of companies being extremely volatile. We saw the month of March where a lot of companies fell, the stock price fell very aggressively. But again, just because some stock has fallen sharply and it is at 52-week low during this year, doesn't make it, it's a temptation, especially as a retail investor, to get into those companies because it traded at a certain value just few months back, and now it's available at a certain price, which is so much cheaper, or it appears cheaper. But these falls can actually be because of valid reasons. Maybe the company cannot survive the crisis. Maybe the company is going through a structural change because of the crisis. It can go bankrupt. And as an equity holder, the price can, if a company goes bankrupt, then you hardly have any value as an equity holder. So you have to be extremely careful. Don't just get into the stock just because it is cheap. But yes, it can be that there are certain fundamentally strong companies that have fallen aggressively during this period, and that's an opportunity. And that's where one has to be extremely objective, prudent while investing. And there is generally a temptation as a human nature that I bought a stock at say $50 and it has fallen now to $40. So you are holding on to a stock because you don't want to book loss. You want at least let me get my cost price back and let it come back to $50, but never do that. And at any given point of time, if you are holding a stock, be extremely objective. You think if the stock has value and grow, only then you hold on to the stock, otherwise just book your loss. And also don't be tempted to book profits easily, quickly into stocks that you've gotten. So if you have got into some stocks that have fallen quite aggressively in March, and you made like 15% in 10 days, and you're like, I want to just exit because you made 15%, don't do that. I mean, maybe the stock will give you much better return in case the fundamentals are strong. So focus on fundamentals, and basically focus on your basically use your don't be emotional, be more objective, as I can say. And another rule of thumb that I generally tell people, and I use it for my own investments, is whatever is your age is the percentage of investment that you can put in safe assets like bonds. And 1 minus your age is where you can use that as a ballpark to invest in riskier assets. And equity will be obviously a much more riskier asset than bond. So these are just some higher investment tips. And the next slide, this talks more about how the markets have behaved from March lows and on a YTD basis. So above charts are on the Indian sector, and you look at in terms of growth, pharma sector has done extremely well in India. For obvious reasons, people are looking at pharma as a potential, beneficiary during the pandemic. And IT sector is doing well. But if you see across the markets, there is a decline on a YTD basis, but there is a pullback into certain sectors. And if you see Indian markets versus the global markets and the GCC markets is somewhere in between. US has done extremely well. And within US, there are certain heavyweight stocks that are really benefiting from the crisis, the likes of Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and they have a lot of weight in the index. So S&P is actually doing extremely well, and it's broadly flat YTD. But there are certain markets which are not that comfortable position, or they don't even have those stocks listed. So another point I want to make is the markets overall will reflect how the companies are doing, but we have to also look at whether the markets is actually reflecting the broader economy. So if you have all the companies that are listed, is it representation of the economy? Otherwise, the market's performance can be a bit misleading. Some interesting charts now I wanted to just share, and then we can open up the forum for the question answers. First, oil is very important here. So you look at where the oil price is heading. If you look at this chart, the level of investment in upstream oil and gas assets is actually now expected to fall. So what does that mean? Does it mean that the likes of shale and other conventional oil and gas investments, if it falls, the output or the supply would fall in the coming years? Does that mean that the oil price will pull back from here? And if the supply falls, who is the winner? Who is the loser? So these are some questions that one can look at for the region where oil is perhaps the most important commodity. Second is the favorite stocks in US, the FANG Plus, which includes the likes of Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, the ones who are actually benefiting quite a bit during this crisis, and has seen their valuations soar. So should one think that it's a bubble, or is this a new world reality? I mean, if somebody has made money, should they exit from these names, or these stocks will make new highs? So this is some questions that one should again think and ask themselves before they decide whether they want to buy or sell these names. Another is how are the markets disconnected with the reality in terms of the recession, the economy impact. If you look at it historically since 1880, the amount of spike that you'll see in majority of the countries that perhaps will enter recession this year would be one of the highest. So do you think that markets, are they factoring in the new reality of the economy, or markets are disconnected? This is a $1 million question that many have, even I have that, but it's something interesting to watch. And I put an airline industry chart here because we talked about Air Arabia. So it was very interesting to show how the demand is picking up after the pandemic, or not rather after the pandemic, during the pandemic, and how the airline industry tries to come back to normal. Are they coming back, or is far from normal? So right now it shows that the demand is far from normal, and majority of the people are not willing to travel, are not comfortable. And finally, the Fed fundraise, because it really matters what the Fed does to the US markets and then globally to other markets. So if you look at the futures curve, it is actually going negative. So what does that imply? I mean, in terms of how much more liquidity can come in the system, and how the treasury rates will move from here, and what does that mean to fixed income as an asset class, and also in the end to equities. So these are some charts wanted to throw up as possible things to ponder. And I'm open for any questions from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishit, for the brief and crisp presentation. And I'm sure members are putting together their questions for you. Nishit, the audience today has people from industry, people from consulting, people from auditing, and it is just half year. 30th June just passed, and we're all closing our books for the first half of 2020. And one of the most daunting task for us accountants is, how are we going to value some of our investments, those which are not going to be listed? I mean, when it comes to listed, of course, we have a reference point to go back and, look at how the markets are and perhaps take that as a basis. But when it comes to, investments which are not listed, and of course, we need to make a realistic assessment of whether they still continue to be at the value they were as of 31st of December or 1st of January. As an analyst, as a researcher, what would be your take on those kind of issues that we face as accountants, as CFOs in companies, or as auditors?
Well, in terms of not listed, or the private equity, or investment that you can't really value, one has to be a bit conservative. Obviously, the reality has changed. So any investment that you value, you would be looking at the fair value based on possible cash flows of that coming from that asset. So if in the new situation, depending on which sector these investments are and how badly the sector is affected, one has to make some level of logical assumptions there, and then accordingly take those call. And I think being conservative would be more prudent in those assumptions that one has to make, because in the end, even if it is not listed, either you look at what has happened to the similar asset class in the listed space, if you have some peer, and get that assumption. Otherwise, you will have to take it in terms of valuing the particular asset with a different discount rate.
Right, Nishit. As I said, our members are not going to let you go with just one question. All they needed is someone to start, and that's what I did. But I can see about at least 2 or 3 questions waiting in the queue. I request Garvita to please read out the questions for the benefit of Nishit.
Yes, Mahesh. Okay, so Mr. Anand Kamath, he has the query that, does the current equity market reflect the underlying fundamentals of the economy, or is it a reflection of optimistic expectation, or because of quantitative easing?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think it's a mix of all of that. There is a sense of there's a lot of liquidity in the market, and when you don't really have a lot of returns in fixed income, people are looking at equity markets as an alternative space where they can make money. In terms of expectation of how the company's performance would be, again, there is investors are willing to pay premium for companies that are going to be least impacted currently, or companies that are actually doing well. So be it in the IT sector and all, or pharma sector. So when you see that there is, when the investors are looking at where they have some level of certainty, while uncertainty, there will the sector that have uncertainty like airlines and all, where investors are getting in. These are high risk bets that somebody say, when you're investing in that. So I would say equity as an asset class is attractive, and within equities, what now we are seeing in terms of movements is where you have certainty, be it even in this region. So now where you have a certainty on the earnings growth. So for example, there is a retailer that is listed here, and people are willing to pay more and more premium, because even if the retailers earnings is growing at 8%, and the stock would have maybe rallied 30% for that 8% growth, because investors are willing to pay that premium for the certainty on that company. Also, investors are looking at companies that gives guaranteed dividends, and are willing to and have the ability to pay such dividends. So these companies will also see a lot of interest from investors. So when you have so much of uncertainty, premium for certainty goes up.
Thank you. And next question is from Mr. Arun. What is your view on USD peg staying in Bahrain due to pressure on resources, and what impact it will potentially have on investor sentiments?
Well, Bahrain peg ratio, I know a lot of people get concerned about that, but in terms of peg, not peg breaking, I really don't think that is, that's not something that I would assume. For simple reason that there is no real huge benefit for Bahrain to break or readjust the peg. Right now, you are, if you look at Bahrain's import, export, and look at the economic reasons, paying the peg at current level will be more beneficial. And if you look at the other countries as well, it's not just about Bahrain peg, it's about the peg for the region. It's about ability to raise dollar funding. So once the peg is changed, you will have a lot of issues in terms of for the country to raise further funding. So it's not something that would be done by the government. And then Bahrain as a country has had historically a lot of support from other countries within the region. So the currency of Bahrain will remain, unless it's done by the government for economic or other reason, which I don't think should be the case. And the government and the central bank here has always stressed that the peg is going to be, where it is. So unless the strategy changes by them for their own reasons, which I don't think so, I think peg is not a concern.
Okay. One more question from our present secretary and elected chairperson for the next term. What should Bahrain do to make its stock exchange much more active? Should it compel certain industry to be compulsorily listed?
Well, very interesting. Bahrain, yes, what we need here, we have a lot of financial companies listed. So there's a good depth of banks listed in Bahrain, and which is an important, sector in Bahrain. But yes, we would like to see many more family houses listing, on Bahrain, and obviously liquidity improving further. So perhaps the listing with a bigger float would definitely help. So this, I think, is one of the reasons, one of the things that we should do, and in the coming years. We are seeing a lot of listing in Saudi recently, so we can take a cue from there, and we can hope that there will be more listing coming in Bahrain outside of the financial space, and that will benefit the overall market. And then we already have a liquidity provider which is doing a good job in terms of increasing the liquidity within the market. So I guess once you have liquid market, we can attract more investors. And if you have a strong IR policies of companies communicating with investors, I think it will attract many more investors, and it's a virtuous cycle. So I think Bahrain is well placed, and they are looking at certain aspects, and things are improving.
Thank you, Mr. Nishit. The questions were really interesting, and you elaborately answered them so interestingly. So thank you so much.
Garvita, we have a couple of more questions.
Okay, yeah.
This is a question, Nishit, from a very young audience who was, of course, one of the rank holder, the country topper in commerce field in Bahrain. Her question is, and of course, she has a liking for finance, and her question is, which country is most likely to emerge as the best place to invest after the pandemic, considering the economic decisions they have taken during the pandemic? So, and of course, she has put a disclaimer, being a student, my knowledge is very basic, so I'm considering if it's right to ask. That's fine. I think you learn only by asking, and no question is a wrong question or a right question. Over to you, Nishit.
Well, I think we are still within the pandemic, so whether we can still judge which country has done a best performance is maybe a bit early, but there are certain countries which have done well. Many of the Southeast Asian countries which are doing very well in managing the pandemic, and they are growing. Countries like Vietnam is seeing good demand. I mean, good economic growth, and investors are looking at Vietnam as a country to invest. New Zealand has done well. Scandinavian countries, some of them are doing well. Certain countries within Europe are doing well. So you can look at those as a starting point to invest. But again, one has to also look at which companies are benefiting. So if one looks at that, then US cannot be ignored as well. Because some of the biggest names that are actually benefiting from the crisis, be it Microsoft or Google or Netflix and Zoom. So the names are listed in US. So one has to also look at what this pandemic has taken us to, and which companies are within those sectors which are benefiting and where they are listed. So obviously, if I have to pass a comment on how the companies or countries have done, then yes, there are certain countries that are doing really well. But when you look at the companies, they may not be listed there. So you have to look at the companies where the company level also, which one is doing well. So it can be a mix of both. But yes, Vietnam and certain names in Southeast Asia are doing good.
Okay, one more question is there. Anything SECO can do for retail investors to access global equity markets?
Yes, so we already have a SECO Live platform where we give one-stop shop solution to everyone to just open their account and invest anywhere across the world. So actually, SECO has been at the forefront to make it easier for not just an institutional client, but also now for any retail clients to come and access the global markets or the regional markets. In fact, we are doing another webinar in the next few days on the regional markets. If anybody is interested to know what's happening in GCC, how the economies are doing and all, it will be a pleasure to have them on board on Monday for the webinar.
So can you suggest any particular stock for GCC, which we can
Well, I wanted to avoid...
This is a question from Joseph.
Nishit, before you answer that, it is important for us to say that, this is a related party transaction. so the question is coming from, a very well-respected friend of mine, Joseph Thomas. And of course, so yeah, carry on.
Yes, there are names, and I don't want to suggest certain names right now, but yes, we will be doing another webinar in a couple of days, and I would want to suggest stock picks, maybe some names there, because every stock has its own risk. So I just don't want to suggest top names randomly here. But anybody is free to contact me, and I would be able to give those ideas.
Right. So Nishit, I'm sure Joseph would have asked you this question in the office. Perhaps he didn't get an answer. Maybe he's using this platform to get some. Nishit, before Garvita takes on to the next question, Nishit, of course, we all are keen to know what's happening in the GCC market because it does has a lot of impact on the financials that we as CFOs or as finance executives manage. But we also have an equal interest in knowing, our personal investments back, mainly in India. How much of a research you do as a part of your, profile in the Indian markets? And what's your take on the Indian markets? A lot has been said about India and the pandemic and how India has been going through the highs and lows of the pandemic. At one stage, we are doing exceedingly well in terms of containing the pandemic, but in the last few weeks, the numbers have grown, and our GDP is also taking a hit. And so, what's your view on? I mean, if at all you have done work on the Indian market, what's your view on the Indian markets?
Well, my focus here in SECO is in GCC. We not tracking from a sell side perspective. We don't look at Indian markets. Obviously, I look at Indian market at a personal level. So, in terms of how Indian market has done, obviously Indian market is currently in a very tricky situation because my personal belief is this COVID as a pandemic is leading to a big difference in haves and have-nots. And so in terms of developed markets, how they are dealing with the crisis, and the developing markets where there is limited option. So, for example, US can print as much money as they want. They're literally doing that in terms of flooding the market and paying huge unemployment insurances. And there's a lot of money in the retail with the retailers, and retailers are then putting the money back in the stock markets. But when you look at Indian market, the government cannot really do that across. The government is trying to come up with schemes for the lowest strata of the society, and perhaps they've done something for the SME sector. But I guess a lot of these industries and all have been left to fend for their own. And what that is, perhaps there is a huge challenge. And if you see currently how the COVID situation in India is evolving, there are still a lot of lockdowns. The situation remains very fragile. So even when you're opening the economy, I get the government had left it on an individual to take their own precautions and then go ahead and kickstart the economy. So I would personally be very careful in investing in sectors in India that have been hit the worst. I would rather want to be a bit safe and invest in sectors and even companies that are top quality names. There are some good quality mid-cap names as well, but I would want to be safe and not be very aggressive in Indian market currently, given how the economy and how limited options the government has right now to boost the economy.
Sure, Nishit. Garvita, you can take on the other question.
Yeah, there's another question from Radhika. How can we value and compare the index funds or ETFs of any particular indices for investment purposes?
Well, looking at you can look at the basic ratios for an ETF, but more than that, one has to take a call whether what that ETF is tracking, what's the underlying asset, and whether you want to be invested in, say, an ETF of. So ETF can be absolutely anything. You can have an ETF of gold. You can have ETF tracking a particular index. Or index funds can be, mid cap, bank Nifty. So there are different, asset classes that a fund or an index fund will track. So first we need to understand whether you want to be invested into that asset class, whether you have you're confident on investing in that. And ETF again becomes an interesting way of taking exposure to the sector. So I would say. First understand the fundamental dynamics of that sector, and then if you are confident about investing into that, then go for it. I mean, if you look at the Nifty, the bank Nifty in India has not really recovered a lot from their lows. So maybe if somebody wants to invest into banks, they can look at a fund that's tracking the bank Nifty or take Bank Nifty as an exposure.
Okay. As you said that personally you look into the Indian market as well. So there is FPO by Yes Bank, which has been recently introduced, and Yes Bank shares are at the lowest value as of now. So what do you suggest?
Again, like I said, just because the share is at the lowest value doesn't make it attractive. And also just because SBI has bought Yes Bank at 10 rupees doesn't make the FPO very attractive. The problem with Yes Bank, again, is for me, I don't know the quality of their asset still. So they've taken a lot of provisions, but still what the previous management has done, and given that the economy of India is going to go through much tougher times in the coming quarters and perhaps next 1 year, there will be many assets that are performing will now become non-performing. And in the pecking order, I would assume that Yes Bank will have a lot of these non-performing loans. So I don't know whether everything is cleared or we'll see a lot more coming. Again, it's a high risk bet. So if somebody has a high risk appetite, they can definitely go for such an FPO and make some good money in the coming years. But it's again on the risk appetite. If you have low risk appetite, you can still be better off buying a quality name like Kotak or HDFC currently.
So basically for long term, we should see it for long
yeah,
term.
but well, like I said, just because it is at one of its lows doesn't mean that it is at the bottom. We have not seen the bottom, and Yes Bank was as good as almost bankrupt until they got bailed out. So you need to have that kind of risk appetite, and you can be invested in. You can take that position.
Nishad, we
Thank
bring you
you.
back to Bahrain now. If you want to, briefly summarize your outlook of the Bahrain market for the next 5 to 6 months, or for the year 2020, what would be your analysis of that? Because that's something that I think I get asked pretty often. I mean, market ka kya haal hai yaar? Kya hone wala hai? How do you see the year 2020 coming to an end? More so because with all the support that the government of Bahrain has been doing for the businesses, and the quantum of that, I read in one of the earlier announcement that it is about 32% of the GDP, and it still continues to pump in more support, through supporting the businesses and supporting the wages. So what would be, as a head of research, what would be your view on the Bahrain market for the year, let's say 2020, next 6 months, 5.5 months?
Okay. Well, like I said, the government in Bahrain has done a lot during this crisis for not just the companies, but also for individuals, and within individuals for the expat community as well, and their citizens. So they've taken extraordinary measures there, and they continue to take that over the next coming quarters. But having said that, if you look at it, the major earnings for the government, given that there is no real taxes other than VAT here, the major earnings is oil. And oil is down, year on year. So there is going to be a huge deficit. And the government has to obviously borrow, and they have borrowed a bit start of the year, and they might have a need to borrow more because the revenues get hit. So it's going to be challenging, I can put it that way, and not just for Bahrain, for the entire region. And I would not be very positive as of now for the entire GCC in the next coming quarters. But then if oil prices stabilizes from here, and the situation, the COVID situation is important, and we are seeing the number of cases across the region coming down, and we are seeing the likes of Dubai and all opening up. Bahrain also has plans of starting the causeway and starting the tourism. So you are looking at some level of normalization happening. So there is a lot of it's a scenario that we are looking at in terms of we have our visitors coming back in Bahrain, how the tourism spending improves, how the oil market, how the oil prices go up, and all these things will play into the factor of how the economy does. Otherwise, right now the sectors have got a breather from their loans. There is the deferral, or rather the waiver to some extent, on the interest that we've seen for 6 months. So situation still is stable, but going forward, whether it will deteriorate from here, or it will be stable, or it will grow, there are multiple factors. I think one of the most important factor would be how the COVID situation evolves within the region.
Right. Thanks, Nishit. Back to you, Garvita.
There is one more query from the current vice chairperson. What is your outlook on Reliance industry at this level?
Okay, I have to give a caveat. I'm an investor into Reliance, and it's very difficult to give an outlook like that. But the share price has rallied quite a bit. But I think one who's investing in Reliance is technically investing in now more in the digital space because of what has happened with the Jio and the amount of money that has gone into Jio. And not just within Jio, but if you look at Reliance is now into so many different sunrise sectors, and being Reliance, we know that they can challenge the market leader at any time. So if I want to bet on the Indian economy, one stock that I would keep for my retirement is Reliance. So if one cannot be Mukesh Ambani, please be invested in Mukesh Ambani's shares. So at least I would say it is a stock that one can just keep accumulating. And despite the fundamentals, just let me give you a caveat. I have not really analyzed the stock in detail, but then I can say that it's a very important barometer of the Indian economy, and will just become much more important in the coming years, given the sunrise sectors they are in, and the amount of political clout and the performance of the company has been in the coming year, in the past years. It's very important. So I would be invest. I am a shareholder, and I would not be selling the shares even despite the rally.
And your outlook on mutual fund in GCC?
Well, mutual fund as an asset class in GCC has not really grown quite a bit. And I think there is a lot that can be done to get investors and even retail investors interested to invest through mutual funds. And of course, it's not really practical to do individual investing if you don't have time to analyze the companies. And mutual fund, the way it has grown in India and all this region, is very far from there. So I think a lot more education needs to be done within the retail space to encourage many of the retail investors here to do SIPs, to invest in mutual fund regularly. And I think there is sky's the potential for mutual funds here.
Thank you, Nishit, for so patiently answering all the queries. As a token of our appreciation, we have a virtual certificate of appreciation. I request CA Mahesh to present the certificate.
Nishit, very thankful to you for accepting this request at a very short notice. It has been a pleasure to read all the work that you have been doing in the last decade, with SECO. And I'm also a beneficiary of that, because I continue to receive your updates, your market outlook, your specific reports, whether it's on merger or acquisition, whether it is on, on the stock markets. It is a pleasure to, interact with you virtually today. And we're also thankful to your CEO, Ms. Najla. I hope she's around here, for joining us on this webinar. And I'm sure the members definitely benefited from the expertise that you shared with us today. Thank you very much. Back to you, Garvita.
Thank you, Mahesh. I hope everyone has found the discussion informative and useful, wherein amidst the anxiety and uncertainty for COVID-19, nuances of investment strategies have been resolved. Mr. Nishit has touched upon various topics like understanding the balance sheet strength of the company, analyzing the sector, and moreover the company within the sector. Special gratitude to Ms. Nazla Al-Shirawi, CEO of SICO, for her gracious presence in the webinar. We thank members of the Bahrain chapter who have taken time to attend this session. In fact, your presence today shows how much you care to strengthen these special webinar sessions organized specially for you all. The members who couldn't attend the live session, they can also benefit from the informative session by listening to the recordings on BCICI YouTube channel. Thanks to all students, school officials, and parents of students for their gracious presence in this webinar session. Thanks to our annual sponsors, Tally Solutions. I would also thank my executive committee colleagues for their support. It has been a privilege to be your host today. While it is time for me to sign off, thank you and wish you all pleasant, safe, and healthy days ahead. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.